welcome back to Klepp's Garage. I'm Bruce, your host, and today we're at Jack's Garage. And we're going to talk a little bit about today about an item that was on a car that I bought, and it was the episode with the fire chief's car. Had a starter dynamo on it, and it was removed and sold to Jack, and he restored it and put it on this car. So we're going to talk a little bit about this car today.
This is a 1914 touring car, which did not come with a starter to begin with, but if you bought the accessory package, which included a starter, a dynamo, a battery, and 2 electric headlights, which did away with the acetylene tank, you were moving first class and keeping up with the big boys.
Yes, so the electric starter didn't come out on the Model Ts until 1919.
It came out in 1919. This starter dynamo was made in 1913 in Springfield, Ohio. It's called a Heinz Springfield. John Heinz was the inventor, put it together. I know it was 1913 because about 1915 John Heinz moved to Detroit because that's where he was selling more of his equipment.
And the chassis that our friend Bill had bought back in the day was a 1913 chassis, and it came with a title, and that's what I have, and so he has the starter dynamo.
Well, the starter dynamo was pretty heavy. It sits on the side of the engine.
So we'll let him zoom in and show you what this thing looks like.
It weighs almost as much as the engine. This is the starter on top. This is the dynamo at the bottom. It's driven off of the front crankshaft with what is called a silent chain. Now, a silent chain will go around different size pulleys and gear teeth, and it will still match with them. And they still use the silent chain today. If you have more horsepower to transmit, they simply make it wider by adding more links to it. Now, it's a mechanical connection from the steering column to the starter. Now, it's not fast, but it cranks it over.
Enough to start it.
It's enough to start it, and a little bit faster when it's a warm engine.
So, but yeah, back in the day, any idea what that would have sold for?
That was $75 back in the day.
$75? Why, that's
but
outrageous.
That included the battery and the lights.
The battery and the lights. But then 1914, a Model T was around 700?
I'm not sure whether it was that high or not for the touring car.
Okay, maybe 600 to
touring
700.
car was kind of the lost leader.
Okay. But $75 was a good bit of money back then. And this is a rare piece of history that was used as an aftermarket item until, like I said, until 1919 when Henry came out with the starter.
When I got it, I found out that it had sat in the weather for a number of years. There are oiling holes at the top of this. We'll zoom in here and I'll point them out. There's an oil hole there and an oil hole down here, which without a hood in a rainstorm did a fine job of collecting water. Those goes directly to the ball bearings. When I got this, the ball bearings had rusted through their cage and they were laying in the bottom of the castings. I spent 6 months working on this to get it to work. Went over to a bearing supply place. I had measured the bearings, gave the gentleman the dimensions I had for one of the bearings in the armature, and it was no problem. In his shop, he actually took 2 steps back, pulled one off the shelf, set it down on the counter, and I said, the next one appears to be metric, but I can't believe it's metric in 1913. He measured it, took 3 steps back, come back with the bearing, put it on the shelf, and simply said, it's metric. So I was very fortunate to be able to get the bearings for this. The major problem was the brush holders which were pot metal, and those really had to be remade. But I was successful in doing that, and it does operate today.
So after this thing is started, then it continues to run, and it becomes the generator or dynamo.
Yes.
So it'll charge your battery so your lights don't run the battery down.
The big advantage of the electric lights, you didn't have to get out with a match and light each individual gas light, as you had to do traditionally in 1914 with a Model T Ford.
Yep. So that's what I wanted to show you on this. I think we're going to look at one of his other cars, so we'll pan over to that. So I'm looking at another car Jack has. Jack has a lot of interesting aftermarket accessories that he's put on his T's. Here's one thing right here. This is an accessory bumper. This is a 1914 also?
This is a 1914 Roadster.
So remember, by 1914, you're still cranking this car by hand to start it. And so companies was trying to come out with different ideas on how to start these without ruining your back and busting your arm. So, Jack, how long have you been in the T business, antique hobby?
I've been in the antique car hobby itself since 1965, but in the T business since about 1980. So about 42 years.
And he's amassed quite a few what I call nicety aftermarket parts. And I'm going to let him tell you about this one because I've never seen anything like this before. All I'm going to tell you is it reminds me of a Briggs & Stratton lawnmower.
Well, it won't cut grass, but it'll make nice tire tracks in the grass for you.
Okay.
In 1914, you did have to crank the car out front to get it started. But, and another advantage was if you could start it from the inside, mechanically this saved you from getting out of the car because a Model T does not have a door on the left side. So if you've got a passenger with you, the passenger has to get out. You can get out if they're not going to crank it, and then you had to crank it. Well, one of the accessory items that they have made available at the time, and this is correct for 1914, was a through-the-dash D-handled starter which quarter turns the engine to start it.
Go around and show the inside.
If you're sitting in the driver's seat and you need to start your car, you simply pull down the throttle level a little bit, retard the spark, reach down and grab and pull on this D handle. What the D handle does, it comes down to the front of the engine and pulls a handle which will quarter turn the engine to start it. And most T engines, if they're in good condition, start easily on a quarter turn.
Supposed to start on a quarter.
Supposed to start on a quarter turn.
Most times they will.
But one of the other advantages of this, women would drive the car and they could still start it from inside the vehicle without having to get out and embarrassing themselves trying to hand crank the car. Now, trust me, it takes a strong arm to pull on that lever.
And you have to be right-handed too.
And, well, yes, you would have to be right-handed.
Yeah. So you lefties, you have to reach over.
It would be a little difficult reaching over, but it does work, it's neat, and it's especially nice if you've embarrassed yourself and stalled your car at an intersection and you don't have to get out to start it. You can simply pull on the D handle, start your engine, and take off and go.
You know, all you T guys know that most people convert them over to an electric start, and the reason being is just what he said. You pull out an intersection, it stalls. Here you are in the middle of the traffic, and you got to tell your wife or whoever's in the passenger seat to get out. You got to crank, start it, get back in. And so, yeah, starters were, even back then, were the thing to have.
It's a nice accessory.
Well, I guess going to wrap this up. I'm going to show you one more thing that he's working on just for fun, and we'll cut to that. So Jack's been, I don't know, sorting through his parts, looking at things, and he decided he had enough parts to put another one together. So I'm going to let you talk about this.
Well, that's the thing. Sometimes, you know, when you're a Model T hobbyist, you tend to collect parts, and eventually you get too much stuff. So what do you do with it? You put together what I call a bitsa. It's a bit of this and a bit of that from all sorts of years. I started out with, I had this piece of brass trim, which happens to be a 1910. And I had this seat, which I'm not sure whether it's a 9 or not, maybe a 1909, may not be. So I simply put together this chassis. I have an engine done for it, which I don't have in it yet. And I did deviate from the Holy Grail and bought some brass headlights that happen to be Studebaker, but they look nice.
Oh yeah, they look real nice. Yeah. So he started with the seat and the brass trim that goes around the days. That's not starting with much.
No, well, the chassis was available. I had the frame, and I had the rear ends and tires and all of the rest of that stuff. But I didn't know what to put on the back end of it, whether to make a speedster out of it or not. And all of my neighbors seem to have a go-kart, which they haul around the neighborhood. I thought I'd make a little pickup bed. I had the lumber, and it was a matter of making the ironwork. Well, the ironwork you couldn't buy at the time from the catalog people. I'm the kind of guy I don't want to buy it anyhow, I'd rather make it. So I made all of the ironwork for this bed, put it all together, including the complicated part back here, which simply holds the tailgate. Now, there's one on each side, so it's not going to go down. Get it right, it pulls right out. But anyhow, this was just a kind of a project for sanity. I could sneak out of the house and get out here once in a while and work on this thing, and eventually it will go together. I have to finish the seat, paint that, and upholster it. And I think everything else is pretty much, it'll go. Yeah. It's just a fun little project. Because like I said, when you get too many parts on the shelf, you got to do something with them.
I call it valuable inventory. So you might as well, it's worth more together than it is on the shelf. And he's going to have a nice little truck out of this. He can hold the grandkids in the back. He can go to the grocery. I think he lives out in the country here. He can do what I do with my Model T. I go to Walmart and get 40-pound bags of salt for my water softener, and I haul that back here. So I think that's going to wrap it up. The reason I was up here tonight, Jack hosts the Model T Club of Northwestern Ohio, and we'll put a link to that down below if you're interested in checking out the website. You can check that out. Great group of guys. We're always trying to learn something new, and then we also promote driving them and showcasing them as a piece of rolling history. So that's going to do it for tonight, and like I always say, drive them if you got them. Thanks, Jack.
You're welcome. Anytime. Thank you.